Alright guys, here we have an old Yamaha. I believe this is a G9. I'll run the serial number and then I will annotate the video with the caption with the year and model. But it's a gas Yamaha and it's experiencing, the engine is running for about, I don't know, maybe 2-3 minutes, and then it starts to slowly throttle down and then dies out. And then it eventually will start again. So it'll run. As soon as I give it full throttle, it dies out. But if I back off, it sometimes will come back. So I'm thinking we might have some garbage in the carburetor. It's either that or we're going to have an electrical issue. So we're going to start with the carb and see if there's any junk in it. It's nice they have a thumb screw on the intake hose here. This one's missing all the little clippies. Take this hose off. That hose off and just lift the air filter cover right out. Little clevis pins here. Nice to have a little parts tray nearby to put all this stuff in. Now we'll take the choke off. Still have to remove this screw to get that clamp off of there, to take that out of the way. So I mean, you can see that they haven't really changed the design a whole lot, which is refreshing. It keeps it simple to work on. I'll use my diagonal cutters here to grab the E-clip and lift it out. Pull the weather boot off of the cable, slide it out of the way. Ooh. And Yamaha has this nice design where you don't need to take this nut completely off. You can just open it up enough. There it is. Okay. You can rotate it up because it's got a slot on the carb, which is really nice. Sometimes the gasket will keep it from doing that. So now I just have to remove, slide this clamp backwards, and then attempt to remove the fuel line without damaging it. And I'll typically grab it gently with the pliers and just start rocking the rubber until it breaks free. We'll just replace this length of fuel line. We got to replace that fuel filter anyway, so. Alright, so we'll take all this nonsense off. This don't matter so much now. 9 times out of 10 it rips anyway when you try to take it off, so we'll just replace it. Okay, yeah, there was no way that wasn't coming off without a fight. That took a bit of time to get rid of that. So, all right, let's get the carb pulled apart and see what's going on internally. Ooh, good, that came apart very easily. Ooh, good, that came apart very easily as well. Wow. Okay, so there's our problem, or at least one of our problems. This thing's got like fuzzies in it. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that. I don't know if you can see the little, I call them little, but they're big chunks of whatever that is. Chunks of crap. That will certainly do it. And the reason why it's happening intermittently and after a short drive is because it's drawing that stuff in from the carburetor. as the fuel is being drawn through the carb, it's, when you're driving around, it can kind of slosh around inside the bowl a little bit. But after a while, it's just going to make its way to this port here. And once it gets to that point, that's when it gets pulled in and it blocks that little tiny passageway. After it blocks the passageway, that's when the carburetor stops getting fuel and shuts down. And then when you let it sit for a few minutes, it floats away and goes away from that port. And then the cycle is just vicious and repeating. And that's why you have that intermittent start and stop and not running kind of situation. So, cleaning the carburetor typically is what will solve most running problems, typically. So I'm going to have to take the spring off of this choke here so I can get to this port here. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do just to kind of get this nice and clean first is I'm going to take it over to get the outside clean first. I'm going to take it over to the parts washer, clean it up, and then we'll start cleaning the internals and get everything ready to go. Alright, this one is probably not going to get much better than that. This one is pretty gnarly. Did my best. Got it as clean as I could with my parts washer, so mostly my main goal is to get things cleaned around, like all the different ports, so we don't have dirt going in there as we're cleaning. That's what you don't want. You don't want to fill your nice clean carburetor with dirt because you didn't want to clean the outside. Just clean it. Doesn't take long. Then we'll readjust the mix, get it to where it should be. Ooh, yuck. Oh yeah, see. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that in there. That is the junk that was inside the carb that I just blew out with the carburetor cleaner. So there was another problem waiting to happen. Which is why we don't just drop the bowl and flush that. We take it all apart when there's an issue like this. If you're going to the trouble to take the carburetor out of the golf cart to work on it, you might as well go the complete distance and completely disassemble it and clean it. It's silly not to. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is start flushing all this stuff off. Because it doesn't ever look like this carburetor's been taken apart before, so definitely was due. And then we'll start reassembling it as we go along. One thing I noticed too is when you have the carburetor apart and if you start flushing it out, and if you notice that the color of the liquid coming out of it is really like orangey, brownish, and it just looks like it's got 100-year-old fuel in it. The carburetor cleaner is basically breaking down the varnish that's on the internal passageways of the carb. So that's why we also like to do that, because eventually if you just run fresh fuel through it, even if you just did a really basic cleaning on it, that varnish will eventually break down with the new gas going through, and we'll get into, if it doesn't block it right away, it will eventually block the smaller passages as it makes its way through the carb. And that's what we try to avoid by thoroughly cleaning it every time we take a carb off a cart. Because it's no fun to get your cart fixed, or when you fix it and you go through all that trouble taking it apart, that if you didn't do a good enough job on it, it's just gonna, it's effortless, you know. I mean, it's pointless to do it that way. So when we do this stuff, we take our time, we do it right, we make sure everything is where it should be as best as possible anyway. So there's a little bit of varnish rolling off of this, so there we go. There we are. Now, like I've said in other videos, guys, this is very soothing and relaxing for me. This is something that I enjoy very much doing. Now, just remember with the Yamahas, I think there's some other carts that do it too. The shaft has got a little bit of a fatter side on one end, if not a flattened spot, and that's the part that goes in last. You want to put the smooth part of that shank or that pin first, so that way when you push that in all the way, it will keep that float in place and the pin won't slide around. I know some of the other carts have that floating pin where it doesn't matter, it just slips in there nice and smooth. Sometimes even the hole is smaller. Now that that's in and I've been touching it, I'll rinse it. Another thing I don't like about these black gloves is the carburetor cleaner makes them extremely slippery. The orange ones, I don't like the orange ones I have here at all. These orange ones, they're not the same as the ones that I used in my earlier videos. These ones just they're very difficult to put on. And if you noticed, earlier in the video I had a set of orange gloves on, but they ripped. And I didn't even do anything, so I went back to the black ones, because these ones don't rip as easy. They got a nice tough outer shell here. So I'll be ordering these again for sure. Okay, so it looks like we are ready to put the bowl back on, just about. Flush this out one more time. That's our idle jet, I think they call that. I'm not 100% familiar with the actual term of what some of these ports are, but it doesn't matter. As long as it's cleaned properly and everything is reset, that's all I care about. And that it works. That can's getting empty. That can is getting empty. And it's going to be lawnmower time, I think. Isn't that awesome? You guys are trying to hear me and hear lawnmowers. It's like, hey, let's fire the lawnmower up. Let's fire it up at full throttle because that's good for it. Take the spring off. This way I can completely clean these threads. And at least just get the crud out of them. So we'll dial that all the way in, and then we'll adjust it once we put it in the cart, so that way we can get a proper reading on it. Now I can reinstall the spring for our choke. I'm sorry, this is our throttle return right here. It has a spring on it right here on the shaft, but they added this extra one here just to give it that extra throttle return, because the choke is spring loaded, so when you pull the choke, so even if it starts, you can hold the choke and it won't flood. It's like an anti-flood valve, which is kind of neat. Is that the proper term for it? Probably not. That's what I call it. Now we'll just rinse the bowl out here. Reinstallate the bowl. This one does not have a drain on it. And we'll insert the bowl nut, or the bowl bolt. Oh my god, that's a tongue twister. Try saying bowl bolt 3 times fast. Okay. Alright guys, that is a disassembled, cleaned, and reassembled Mikuni Yamaha carburetor. Let's get it back in the golf cart. Slide this in, lock that down. Get this started here. I'll get everything started so that way it's real quick when everything else goes on. Okay, we'll start this. Everything goes back together pretty quick, so that's one thing that's really nice about working on these things. And we do have to change this fuel filter. So we're going to take this one off. If we can get it off. There we go. Put that over there. New fuel filter in place. Tighten that down. Got a new piece of fuel line already. Don't know if this clamp is going to be large enough. Shortly find out here. Yeah, it'll work. Slide the fuel line over the barb on the carburetor. Stainless steel hose clamps. Tighten it down enough to get it started. Get it touching the rubber so it doesn't fall off while I'm manipulating the hose here. Slide it on. We'll tighten it down. You don't have to go nuts tightening these down because you don't want to damage the hose. Okay. Here we go. These carts do have a fuel filter built into the tank, but you have to drain the tank basically to change them. So we've added one here at some point, or somebody has added one here at some point, and it works just fine. So now we can tighten down the carburetor, and then we'll reinstall our pins. For the cables, the control cables. And then it's not going to fire right up right away because we've adjusted our idle and our high, we've adjusted our mix valve here, so we have to mixing valve, whatever you want to call it, the part with the spring and the screw. I'll keep it simple for you. This part here, we have to adjust this, which we will do in short order. You can see somebody's actually bent this bracket in order to get more speed, which is not the proper way to do it, but hey, not my cart. Okay. I'll take this pliers here and knock that in. Okay, that's good. I'll just make sure it's seated properly with the screwdriver. Sometimes when you're trying to put these on, they'll fling off and they'll go wild and crazy and you'll never be able to find them. It's quite annoying. Okay, so now we'll install our throttle. There's a little hole. This is where our little clevis pin will go into. I'm going to install the choke one as well just to get it in place. I typically try to line the hole up so it lines up with the cable. Just makes it easier to install it. sometimes. Okay, in that case it actually worked out well. I got this one. I don't remember how. Okay. Sometimes this works. Sometimes it can be a pain in the ass. Okay. And they get lost too every once in a while. They'll fall. Alright, so there's our choke. Here's our throttle. Here's our throttle return spring. Our new fuel filter with the new hose clamp. Here's the original hose clamp we reused. There's another hose clamp we reused. Now we got to put the air box on, hook the hose back up, and we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Okay, I'll drop the filter box on. Install our breather tube. Rotate this clamp around. I'm going to open this clamp up a little more here so I can slide it back. Okay, and then we'll bring this down here. See, these are very simple to work on. That's what I like about these Yamahas. Very easy to get to everything, and they're pretty advanced for their time too, which is nice. Unlike these newer Easy Goes nowadays with the 48 volt RXVs with the electric brake on the electric motor. God, I hate that. Alright, so let's see what happens now when we try to get this thing running. We'll watch for the fuel to prime the system here, the fuel filter. We may have to manually prime the fuel system. Okay, so let's manually prime the fuel system so we don't drain the battery down. You can do this a couple of different ways. You can, if you're brave and you feel like it, you can blow into the gas tank gently. I don't advise that, so I like to take an air hose and just give it a little bit of a puff. There we go. So now there's fuel that's flowed into the filter. You can see the filter has been populated by fuel, so it should be good. It should prime itself now. I'm going to give it some choke. That may not start right away. Okay. Now I'm going to take this and we're going to try to crank it. I'm going to slowly open our half a turn. Another half a turn, so now we're a full turn open. Possible we might need to put a fuel pump on this. Yep, thinking we might need to fuel pump this because there's no wetness around it, but it's not pumping, so I'm thinking we're going to need a fuel pump. Fuel pump it is. Loose. Helmet off it. My battery that's not mounted correctly. First of all, so I can get a little bit easier access. Take this off. Yeah, we're just going to do that. We're not even going to take the hose off because this bottom one might come off a little easier. Give him a little cut. the actual fuel line from the tank. It runs from the bottom of the tank. Makes it much easier to, you see how large it is too. Good. It actually got flexible, so. Okay. Put my little drain pan under here. I'm going to let some fuel run out of the line here because I'm sure there's probably water in it. Oh yeah. Okay. Not the dirt, but there's water in that gas. The dirt was already in there. Some of it. Well, the yellowy orangish stuff was not in this pan. This was a clean container. This is part number FP004 fuel pump. And then what I did was I took the fuel line off of the carburetor and I ran the cart to run crank the engine over, and it did not have any fuel flow, so I know the fuel pump was blocked, and the fuel line is not blocked because it did flow freely. Now we got to try to get this on here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? While we're here, I'm going to get rid of these squeeze clamps. We're going to put some regular hose clamps on. These hose clamps are way better, much more serviceable. We have our line in, our line out, and then the pulse. And all the pulse is, it's just when the piston goes up and down inside the engine, the crankcase has it's got vacuum and then it's got a pressure. It's got a positive and negative pressure cycle every time it goes up and down, so that creates a pulse, and they use that to drive the fuel pump. Pretty much is true for any single cylinder engine, even two-cylinder engines like the Robin engine and the Easy Goes, the older Easy Goes, since both pistons go up and down at the same time. So now I just have to get my pulse line. The pulse line that comes off of the crankcase is also connected to the PCV, but it's part of the emission system. Well, yeah, I guess if you want to call it an emission system. But instead of venting to atmosphere with the crankcase gases, it sends it back to the air filter, air box to be reburned. And that's what this tube here is. I don't know if you can see where I'm pointing, but this tube that comes off the valve cover, that's what that's for. And if you see oil inside your air box, that's normal. Okay, there we go. That's on there good now. Alright, so first I'm going to mount the fuel pump before I go any further. Put my big heading in the way. The footprint of this pump is quite different. The new pump is actually smaller, so we're only going to get away with using one mounting bolt. Which is fine, it'll be alright. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's just, it feels incomplete is all. So I can hook up the fuel line to the pump here. And then we can route it to the carburetor. Okay. There we go. Now I just need a piece like this long. Okay, so now New fuel line here. New clamp. This one here. What I'm going to do is we're going to get the system running here. Okay. There we go. So the fuel pump's pumping. The old pump, I lifted it up like this, it wouldn't even push any fuel at all, so I knew it was a bit tired, to say the least, so it was time. I didn't show that on camera, but that's basically what I did to diagnose the fuel pump, which I had a feeling it was going to need one earlier on anyway. There we go. Alright, now this should, theoretically, fire right up. Still have to adjust our mix screw here. Half throttle. Alright, I think that is a result. That is working as it should. Alright guys, well there you go. Carburetor had junk in it and the fuel pump was shot. So we got this one up and running. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. Check out the links in the description below for products that I use every single day to bring you these videos and to run my business. Check out my website, Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, all the links are down below. Leave a comment if you have any questions about this particular issue, and we will see you in the next video.